The Druids, enigmatic figures draped in white robes, wielding both mystical power and political clout. They were the elite of Celtic society, holding sway over religion, law, and intellectual pursuits. But unlike other ancient civilizations, the Druids left behind no written records. Our understanding of their practices comes from a patchwork of archaeological finds, and perhaps less reliably, the accounts of outsiders. Imagine trying to piece together a culture solely through glimpses from suspicious neighbors and the occasional unearthed artifact. That's the challenge historians face with the Druids. Further complicating matters, Celtic cultures themselves were diverse. Practices likely varied from region to region, making it difficult to paint a complete picture. Some regions might have emphasized astronomy and celestial alignments in their rituals, while others focused more on offerings to ensure bountiful harvests. Understanding the Druids is a complex task. Limited written records and the heavy reliance on potentially biased Roman accounts make it challenging to reconstruct their practices accurately. We must be critical consumers of information, acknowledging the limitations of our sources and the possibility of exaggeration or misinterpretation. However, by piecing together archaeological evidence, examining the writings of outsiders cautiously, and drawing insights from comparative studies, we can continue to build a more nuanced picture of the Druids and their rituals. Our primary sources for Druidic rituals are Roman writers like Julius Caesar and Tacitus. Now, Caesar was a brilliant military general, but not exactly known for his even-handedness. He needed to justify his conquest of Gaul, and portraying the Celts as barbaric fit the bill nicely. Imagine writing a press release to glorify your victory and downplay the resilience of your enemy. Tacitus, writing decades later, likely relied on Caesar's accounts and embellished them for a Roman audience with a taste for the drama. Across Europe, archaeologists have unearthed remarkably well-preserved bodies preserved in bogs. Some show signs of violent death. Were these sacrifices to appease the gods, or something else entirely? The debate rages on. Perhaps the positioning of the bodies, arms crossed, facing a specific direction, holds clues to the rituals surrounding their demise. Archaeologists also point to the objects found with these bodies, elaborate jewelry, tools, or ritually broken weapons, as evidence of offerings. The type of wood used in their preservation might even be significant. Certain woods were believed to have symbolic properties in Celtic cultures, and their presence could be linked to specific rituals. For example, oak, considered a sacred tree by the Celts, might have been used to preserve bodies offered to deities associated with strength and protection. Sacrifice was central to Celtic religion. It was a way to connect with the gods to ensure the continuity of life itself. Specific animals were chosen based on their symbolic connection to the divine. Imagine a powerful, snorting boar offered to Tyrannus, the god of thunder, or a herd of sleek cattle sacrificed to enhance the fertility of the land, ensuring bountiful harvests. The methods of sacrifice themselves varied. Archaeological evidence suggests throat-cutting and drowning were common practices. But the sacrifice went beyond the mere act of killing. Burning fat as an offering, consuming the meat during rituals, these acts were all part of a complex communication with the other world, the realm of the gods. Some scholars believe the consumption of sacrificial meat may have been seen as a way to establish a connection with the divine, a way to absorb the strength and vitality of the sacrificed animal. Sacrifice wasn't just about appeasement, it was also a means of divination for the Druids. The Celts believed the cries of a dying animal, the way flames danced around an offering, or even the way the entrails of a sacrificed animal fell, could hold messages from the other world. Skilled Druids would meticulously examine these signs, interpreting them to predict the future, diagnose illness, or reveal the cause of misfortune. This practice highlights the Druids' role not just as religious leaders, but also as oracles, offering guidance and insight to their communities. Now we come to the most controversial topic, human sacrifice. Here's the thing, there's no clear archaeological evidence for widespread human offerings. Burned bones could be from sacrificed animals or unfortunate souls who met their end in a different way. Plus, centuries of weather and human activity haven't exactly been kind to potential evidence. But were there extreme circumstances where human sacrifice happened? Perhaps during a brutal war or a devastating famine, when a community felt utterly desperate and willing to pay any price for divine intervention. Or maybe for certain crimes, where a high-value offering was deemed necessary to appease the gods. The Romans certainly loved a good story about barbaric practices, but it's important to remember their bias. Is it possible their accounts were exaggerations or even fabrications entirely? Another theory gaining traction is the concept of symbolic sacrifice. Perhaps effigies made of wicker or wood were burned instead of actual people. The wicker man, after all, might be a metaphor rather than a literal description. The image of the wicker man, a giant wicker cage burning a human sacrifice, has become synonymous with the Druids, thanks to Julius Caesar and Hollywood. But archaeology throws a wrench into that narrative. Large wicker structures have been found across Europe, but their purpose remains a mystery. Religious offerings, symbolic effigies, even punishment cages. Perhaps the burning wasn't about human sacrifice at all. Maybe crops were burned as an offering, or effigies representing conquered enemies were set ablaze in a symbolic act of dominance. Some scholars even propose the wicker man could have been a giant effigy representing the changing seasons, with the burning symbolizing the death of winter and the rebirth of spring. Let's be clear. Sacrifice wasn't about bloodlust for the Druids, it was about maintaining cosmic balance. Imagine a world where the changing seasons, the health of your livestock, and the success of your hunts were all seen as dependent on the whims of unseen deities. A healthy herd or a bountiful crop wasn't a given, it was something that needed to be earned through offerings and rituals. Sacrifice also played a role in divination, a way for the Druids to interpret the will of the gods. The cries of a dying animal, the way flames danced around an offering, these were all seen as potential messages from the other world. The entrails of sacrificed animals might be meticulously examined, searching for patterns that could predict the future or reveal the cause of misfortune. While sacrifice was a common practice across many cultures, the Druids' approach likely differed. Unlike some cultures where offerings aimed to appease angry deities, the Celts may have viewed sacrifice as a form of reciprocal exchange. They offered to the gods in hopes of maintaining cosmic balance and ensuring continued prosperity. Contrasting Druidic practices with those of the Egyptians, with their focus on appeasing the dead, or the Aztecs, with their emphasis on bloodletting, can highlight the unique perspective of the Celts. So, let's move beyond the stereotype of Druids as bloodthirsty barbarians in white robes. Celtic religion was complex, with regional variations in practices, philosophies, and a deep connection to nature. There's even evidence that Druids were astronomers, studying the movements of the stars to understand the cycles of life and death, to predict harvests, and to mark the passage of time. They were healers, using plants and herbs to treat ailments, and drawing on the power of nature for healing. And they were keepers of oral traditions, passing down stories, myths, and legal codes through generations. The Druids were the intellectual and spiritual heart of Celtic society, far more than just guys burning stuff in giant wicker cages. Their legacy lives on in the enduring fascination with their culture, in the remnants of megalithic structures like Stonehenge, and in the traditions of modern pagan religions. The veil of history may never be fully lifted, but by piecing together the evidence, we can begin to understand the complex world of the Druids and the role they played in shaping Celtic civilization. And who knows, maybe future discoveries will shed even more light on these enigmatic figures, revealing the true nature of their rituals and their place in the grand tapestry of history. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this.
It's London Lee!